We're back with the most controversial episode ever
of the season.
Yeah, this is the season finale, actually, and we're coming at it with all the racy kind
racism.
of all the racism, off limits topics. It's really difficult to find this kind of content on YouTube these days, but we're bringing it to you.
And spoilers galore.
Excuse me.
Pubic figures.
Okay, let's get down to business here.
Okay.
Oh, God. Today on the show, we're going to have a very frank and earnest discussion about some controversial topics, and I don't want to hear anybody in the comments getting fucking tight in the fucking panties and calling the YouTube police on us.
Has that been happening?
Oh God, you should see the mailbag. You should see just the endless response that we get.
Imagine the mailbag, you open it up and a moth flies out of it.
Oh yeah, a moth and like maybe like a fucking couple maggots in the bottom. Okay, so I actually wrote down a couple seconds before I wrote down the movies that I think we're supposed to talk about today.
I wrote down nothing.
No, that's okay. It's my responsibility. That's the charm of the show. That's our rapport. Like I'm the one who like cares and like.
And I'm the one that doesn't care.
That's the magical rapport that we have.
Got it.
So, okay, first thing to talk about, I think, would be the sailor who fell from grace with the sea. Right? Okay. Yeah. And
the sailor who fell from grace with the sea.
Yeah,
right?
It's with the sea. Yeah, it's not from the sea. I keep thinking it's from the sea, but it's with the sea. Anyways, this is a movie that you kind of just out of the blue recommended to me, based on the previous kind of flirtation with Killer Kids,
right?
Because we had talked about those two French movies.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really interesting one because it's like based on a Japanese novel, and like when you know that, you're kind of like, oh fuck, like this really does seem like a Japanese story. Like for some reason it kept making me think of that No Longer Human.
Oh right.
By what's it called? What's his name? Osamu Dazai.
I just remember the Junji Ito manga version.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. A kid wouldn't really be going through this in like a British movie, like this kind of weird, like psychosexual kind of thing going on with his mother, and also sort of a new father coming into his life, and then also these weird kids with their like Nietzschean sort of philosophy of like might makes right. Like the whole thing seems extremely Japanese to me.
Well, there's another British film it's pretty good. It's with I always like the title is so shitty that it's hard to remember it, but it's with David Hemmings from Deep Red and Blow Up, and he's a prep school teacher, and he's replacing a teacher that died, and then it's.
Well, hold on a second. What's the title of this film?
It's called like Zygote. It's like three names. It's sort of like Zygote, Berenstain, and Topher or something. Like it's like that's what I'm saying. Like I can't remember the name. It's like but it's like it's named after three students in the class. It's another sadistic British prep school student movie.
It's called Unman, Wittering, and Zigo.
That's it.
Zygote.
I just keep thinking like it's like Zygote, trench coat, and I don't know. But the fucking title's horrendous. But the movie's interesting. The ending's a little bit of a disappointment, but a lot of it is pretty interesting, pretty good.
Okay, well, I mean, elaborate on that a little bit. Like, I mean, so it's about a prep school teacher, And
right.
it's
So
about,
prep school teacher, and so the teacher he replaces dies, and he's taking over this class, and then the class is a little sassy. They're a little mouthy, and they're kind of like, guess what, teach? We're going to do whatever the fuck we want to do. And he's like, I don't think so. And they're like, yeah, because the previous guy who was working here that you replaced, we killed him. And then the guy's like, that's kind of like how it starts. And his attempt to try to bring the kids to some kind of justice, like it's sort of like the kids think that they've committed this sort of perfect crime where like because everybody sort of killed the teacher, everybody was in on it. So like, nobody can do anything about it.
So, okay, so it's like a thriller horror film about kind of like a teacher versus this like, crafty kind of class of young psychopaths.
Right.
Okay. That's interesting.
But it doesn't like I feel like the Sailor movie kind of delivers a little bit more on what it promises as opposed to the Unman Zygote and I already forgot the title.
Unman, Wittering, and Zigo. All right. Well, I guess that one's going to go on the list. Do you would you say that that's a recommend?
It's a recommend with a disclaimer that the ending felt like a bit of a letdown, but the buildup was very exciting.
Okay. Well, sounds like I'll put that one on just to take a look. I've never actually seen David Hemmings in anything other than Deep Red. So okay, so whatever. We'll get through this bullshit of the sailor who fell from grace with the sea.
Okay.
The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea. I really liked this film. I thought it was like really surprising and kind of one of those things where you're watching it and you're kind of like, this film's not going to be about this, is it? And then it's like, oh, it is about this. It's just about these really bizarre kids. Well, I guess a really bizarre kid that kind of has, manipulated the kids around him and created this little club, and they have themselves numbered in like ranking order. Who's who. So there's the chief, and then there's like a descending number, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and it's like it's all based on sort of the value that is attributed by the chief to the rest of the kids. And, and that kind of speaks to his whole philosophy, which is, Wikipedia describes it as neo-Nietzschean. I'm not sure like if that's entirely accurate. But I guess just sort of that, like, might makes right. The weak feed the strong. That kind of, this is his philosophy, like a real macho kind of philosophy.
And also, like, morality is something that we create ourselves. So no matter what terrible things they do, if they can justify them, then they're okay.
Right. So we get set up with that, and then.
But also the main kid, the one that we sort of are really following, he's a member of the gang. He's not the leader of the gang. Like he's kind of like a second place or third place.
Yeah, he's definitely like one or the other, second or third.
So he's not the Ubermensch of the children. It's that belongs to a particularly sadistic homosexual boy.
And let's just take a moment to say how attractive and sexy this boy is.
It's beautiful.
But beautiful young boy. But anyways, so the boy that is our protagonist, the boy that kind of we follow, has got a mom, and the mom's kind of sad, and she has sort of a ritual at night where she kind of looks at herself in the mirror naked and kind of touches her breasts and stuff and
Masturbates
and molests
molests herself
and molests him. No, she doesn't do any of that. She kind of laments, is what I was trying to say, not molests. She laments the loss, I guess, of her husband.
And they also live in a very small, isolated seacoast village.
Yeah.
So she's very, very lonely widow.
Sure. This kind of town is sort of peculiar for like a British film. But like when you realize that it was originally a Japanese novel, it makes a lot more sense. It's like, oh yeah, that's probably where like a lot of Japanese people live, just some little weird isolated village by the sea. Mm-hmm. So we kind of get acclimated to them, and then next thing you know, big fucking balls, thick dick Chris Christopherson shows up on a fucking some sort of boat, and I guess the boy has some interest in ships and boats and stuff, so he ends up like going to check out the boat, and he impresses Chris Christopherson because he like knows the names of stuff. Like he's like, oh, that's a 2-stroke bilge pump or whatever. And Chris Christopherson's kind of like, oh, you damn straight it is, and he's all
he's like a boat Trekkie,
a boat nerd. And the next thing you know, the mom of the boy is asking Chris Christopherson out to dinner, and that they strike up a very
hot romance,
quick and hot and fiery, exciting romance right off the bat. And it's the sex, the physicality of it is very emphasized. There's like prolonged, like fairly graphic sex scenes for like.
Well, you also forgot to mention when you were talking about the mother sort of looking at herself in the mirror and caressing herself. Her son likes to watch her do those things.
I did forget that.
So he's got a hole in the wall in his bedroom where he likes to watch his mother masturbating.
Yeah, he puts his penis through the hole.
Unfortunately, I don't think they do that, but
yeah.
I don't want people watching the movie now thinking that they're going to get that action.
Yeah. Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. There's no glory hole action in this movie.
Yeah, the boy does not put his penis through the hole in the wall. His little prepubescent penis through the hole in the wall.
It's not called the sailor who fell from grace with the glory hole.
Yeah,
guys.
The sailor who sucked off the young boy through the hole in the wall. So there's like these pretty like graphic sex scenes. Very, very, this is the kind of sex scenes you don't really see anymore in movies, so that just seem very like human and just kind of like, people doing a normal thing, having sex,
Right. So that when he starts to have when she starts to have the relationship with Chris Christopherson and it becomes sexual and they start making love in her bedroom, of course, the son does he's back at doing the Porky's thing. He's looking through the wall, watching mom fuck the new guy, and I think at that point he gets caught.
But I mean, like, first of all, before we get into that, like, Chris Christopherson is set up as being very likable and very reasonable, and like as a viewer, you like him. Like you're kind of like, oh, what a lucky thing for this woman to just just some fucking sailor coming in off a boat. Like
her ship literally came in.
Yeah, like he could have just came in, fucking dug her out, ate her cupboards bare, and then just got back on his boat and left. But instead he like he really loves her, and he decides to give up the sailor's life and start a new life with her. Like indeed her ship did come in, and then so the viewer likes this guy. He's got a voice. Chris Christopherson and Sam Elliott are cut from the same cloth, I would say.
Well, this is very young Chris Christopherson, so I don't think I know young Sam Elliott as well as young Chris Christopherson.
Well, I mean, we're talking like Chris Christopherson, we're talking like Sam Elliott, like Mask era,
Okay.
So, anyways, the thing about the boy watching through the hole in the wall. He gets caught, and then the mom freaks out and starts to beat the boy. And who is it that comes to his rescue is, of course, Chris Christopherson, who kind of, is reasonable about the whole thing. And he's just kind of like, well, he's a young boy and he's figuring stuff out. A pretty progressive view for the time, I'd say.
Right.
And then they manage to, kind of settle things that night, and we'll talk about it in the morning. And indeed, kind of the next morning, things are settled and things seem fine. And also, I should kind of rewind a little bit and say too that when the boy is talking about all this shit to his friends, it should be like in a less complex, a less interesting movie, the boy would hate this guy, but in fact he doesn't. He likes this guy a lot. He's like, oh, I got, like, my mom's dating this great guy, and yeah, she's fucking this guy, but I'm glad she is, because he's a good guy. Like the whole time the kid pretty much likes the fucking sailor, but also he likes him because he's a sailor. And once he decides to quit being a sailor and just devote himself to the mom, he kind of doesn't like the sailor anymore, which is an interesting thing. And
it's like almost like a complete 180, which is sort of exacerbated by the gay,
beautiful boy,
the sadistic beautiful boy of the leader of the prep school gang, that this is a sign of weakness that needs to be rooted out. You thought that this guy was like this big, powerful, strong man, sailor guy, and actually, guess what? He's a wimp, and you know what we do with wimps? We have to kill them.
Right, and there's also that really striking, kind of upsetting scene of when they drug the cat with like drugged milk and then dissect it in what I remember to be like a greenhouse kind of.
Right.
All the kids are gathered around, and the main kid, the beautiful boy, is like holding the heart, and then they're all looking at it, and it's just, they're all kind of like, wow, oh, now I see what you're talking about. Like,
well, for some reason they all think that this kid is the best. Like, he's the smartest, he's the greatest. He kind of talks in a way that is well above his years. And they do whatever he says. So when I feel like there's a scene when he demotes the boy that we're sort of following in the story. I can't remember why he didn't demotes him. He's not following,
because he won't stop talking about the sailor.
Right. So his sort of what he sees, I guess, is sort of like this silly obsession with this sailor. He sees as some sort of form, he sees his kid as weak because he's having these human feelings, human emotions. So he demotes him. There's no resistance. Like, it's just sort of like, oh well, okay, I guess that's what I have to do.
Yeah.
Nobody stands up to this kid. They just do whatever the fuck he says.
Yeah. Well, that's just part of their. I mean, I don't know that that's entirely true. Like, I believe, isn't there like a moment where they fight a little bit or something, and then?
I mean, there might be moments, but he never loses his power position, and he's always in charge. So there might be moments of disagreement, but they all just fall into line eventually.
Well, anyhow, this all culminates to the main protagonist boy agreeing with the psychopath beautiful boy, and I
also want to say that cat scene you just mentioned too is like, that basically sets the stage of like, this is how far these kids are way out there. Like, they're willing to go that far.
Right.
So you know, like, okay, if they're going to do this, what's coming next?
Remember that gay guy who like would kill cats with like golf clubs and stuff, and then send the videos?
Oh, Luca Magnotta.
Right. Luca. You did a drawing of him in one of your books.
The Canadian.
Right. The ambassador of Canada. Yeah.
You got to get him on the podcast.
Oh, for sure. He's having a wonderful life in prison, in Canadian jail. I think he found a nice boyfriend. I think that he actually just sort of in spite, he communicates to the press saying oh, I like jail. It's awesome. I'm having a great time here, and I'm not suffering at all. I like it.
Cool.
But again, good for him. So anyways, so they end up poisoning the fucking Chris Christopherson. Not poisoning him, but drugging him, making him fall asleep, and then all the kids are kind of sitting around him while he tells a story, and he kind of drifts off and loses his train of thought, and because he's falling under the influence of this drug that they've given him, this fucking sedative. And then he kind of slumps over, and all the kids kind of fall upon. And there's also this really kind of chilling moment where the psychopath boy, not the main boy, the psychopath boy starts putting on rubber gloves while he's still talking. He's just so eager to get down to business. He's putting on the gloves while this guy's still talking, while Chris Christopherson's still telling stories, which I really was just oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty vicious, And then
that kid's hardcore,
right?
He's
and then
a great villain,
right? And then Chris Christopherson is facing away from the camera, and all the kids are sitting around him. And then they pull back, zoom backward, and then all the kids kind of coalesce upon him as he falls forward, and ostensibly cutting him open, dissecting him. And then the credits roll over top of that, and it's all on the shore, on this sort of the grassy shore with the guy's boat leaving for the last time. And it's just I was actually almost relieved that I was spared the graphic dissection of Chris Christopherson.
No, I like that. I like how they ended it in that fashion, seeing the kids kind of gather around his unconscious body. Are they really going to go through with it? They kind of leave it open to your speculation.
No, I think that it's pretty clear that they go through with it.
I do too, but they don't make it 100% clear. So there's always, I don't know. I like when things are a little, even slightly ambiguous.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't think that the point of that was to be ambiguous. I think the point of it was just to kind of to maybe spare the audience, or it's kind of you don't.
They just killed the cat.
Yeah. The cat's enough. I mean, yeah, we've already seen the cat. To do this again, with a human, what are we doing? What kind of film are we making here? Are we making some fucking August Underground film here? Or are we trying to make a piece of art?
It'd be funny if they drag him to a Saw bathroom and start torturing him for the next hour.
Yeah. They drug him and take him to Bulgaria, and then
force him into sex slavery.
Yeah, and then pee on his face and be come on, drink it. You are dirty whore. You like to drink? Here you go. You have to drink then.
Piss Christopherson.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, me and Johnny had some wonderful memories watching that film. We also suggest that you watch it as well. Although now that you know how the film goes, there's really no reason to. Not entirely sure what this podcast is for. What can I say about the film? I mean, the poster fucking is so stupid. I hate that fucking that sort of 70s illustration.
Well, it has looks like sort of Yellow Submarine type illustration.
Yeah. But so I mean, we can talk about I Spit on Your Grave Part 2, because I watched that one.
I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, and when I watched the first remake and just totally prepared to kind of hate watch it, thinking this is going to be weak, and it wasn't weak. It was good. I was wow, this is they did a really good job. They kept the spirit of that first one, or the original one. And then, so I was all right, I'll watch the second one. I like that first one. And I saw all three on some streaming service at the time. So I watched the second one, and I liked the second one. I don't remember much about it other than they dragged that lady. That's a completely different story with a different girl, and they they drag her to some horrible place in
Bulgaria.
Eastern Europe. But I remember liking it. Like it's still delivered on all I spit on your grave promises.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think you have to, especially since it's the sequel, like, because I actually did like the original remake. Like
I did too.
Like the original is it is what it is. It's a little rough around the edges, but it's like it's pivotal. It's sort of like a movie that we haven't seen anything like that before, like the original 70s one. Mm-hmm. And then so that one, that's just good, like kind of on that merit alone.
It's sort of like in my mind, I always kind of like mix together Last House on the Left.
Yeah.
And like I kind of like, was that Last House on the Left or was that I Spit on Your Grave? Because they both kind of have that same vibe to it.
Yeah, it's all in the forest.
And I think, of course, Last House on the Left is a lot. It's a lot better.
Right.
Like it's like there's better bad guys in it. David Hess is really horrific.
Yeah.
And you don't have that same villain crew that you have, but it's still all right. It's still pretty good.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, it's also just the fact too that it's like, the whatever. I mean, I don't want to get too much into this, but the feminist aspect of it, how it's like a woman kind of taking revenge on these guys, like that's pretty novel.
Right.
Usually, like in Last House on the Left, it's like the
parents.
It's the parents, and that's also based on A Virgin Spring.
And let me remind everybody, one of the parents is a woman. So
right. So that's it, guys.
So feminist.
Right. Bet you guys didn't think of that. I think it even kind of improves upon the original because it adds.
I think so.
It adds production value,
right? Like it doesn't like when I went into it, like I said, I felt like this is going to pull punches and
no,
it's not going to be as impactful as that first one, but I felt like it was just maybe more impactful, and like you said, the productions are better, the acting is better, the bad guys are more like horrible people, like you could kind of like they're better actors. It just feels all around better,
right? And they do the rug pull with the sheriff, like, oh, okay, she's safe now, and then it's like, oh, the sheriff's actually the worst rapist of all, and like really, like, okay, so how does this movie work? Like, what are the mechanics of this fucking thing? It's like, well, you watch a woman get brutalized, and you take it just about as far as it'll go, and she escapes, and then she comes back and she takes revenge. And the key to the whole thing is that the revenge has to kind of at the very least equal what she did, what they did to her, or ideally it needs to surpass it.
Yeah, that's true. Like I think any revenge film, whether it's feminist or whatever to somebody getting revenge, you want the revenge to be you want it to be satisfying. You want the bad people to get everything that they deserve and then some. And if they don't, it just like if there's something where like if the bad people are torturing this person and torturing them and making their life miserable for years, and then they come back and just like take a gun and sneak up behind the person and shoot him in the head. Doesn't feel good. Like it just feels like, well, that was deserved, but story-wise, it just doesn't feel satisfying. Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, and I mean, and the fact that Death Wish 2 didn't understand this is such a head scratcher, because like Death Wish 2. But
I feel like it like we were talking about via telephone earlier. I do think that like Death Wish 2 is like almost like a redo of the first one, because the first one doesn't give you the big bad enemy. So, because like, you know, the guys come in, Jeff Goldblum and the gang, kill the wife, make the sister, not sister,
daughter,
make the daughter all fucked up in the brain.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when you watch that movie, you're thinking like, okay, he's going to go get Jeff Goldblum, but those guys are gone. Like, you never see them again. And it's a little unsatisfying. And so the second one gives, like, it literally like is a redo of that. Like, you, instead of because the wife's dead, so housekeeper and the daughter, you know, still the same daughter. The bad guys come in and rape and really torture and fuck up the maid and kidnap the daughter. And so now Charles Bronson is after these specific guys. And so it's actually giving you that thing that the first one didn't give you.
Maybe the real takeaway from this is like how Death Wish 2 is actually like, that is actually kind of following the I spit on your grave model more than Death Wish 1. Like, Death Wish 1 isn't really that. Death Wish 1 is something else. It's more like, you know, it's got more of like a social commentary angle.
Right. I think it's got a bigger message about urban crime. What are we going to do about it? You know, and that's all well and good, but it doesn't feel as, it can feel a little dry. It can feel a little disconnected. It doesn't feel as satisfying as getting that revenge against a specific person that hurt your family.
Right. But at the same time, like, it's a lot more like realistic, insofar as that it's like, you know, okay, Jeff Goldblum and the gang, they're gone and we never ever see them again.
Right.
And that's just something that's just an itch that Charles Bronson's just never ever going to be able to scratch, you know? But so instead, it's just like Batman, you know? It's like, instead of like, he's never going to be able to kill the guy who killed his parents. So
I'm sure there's some comic book out of the millions of Batman comics where he meets that guy and.
Yeah, I mean, well, number one, there is like that. Okay. that definitely does happen. Okay. But number two, like, that's not the point of Batman. Like, Batman went on for decades and decades without them finally just like wringing the material down to the last drop and being like, oh, well, how about we get him to fucking find the guy who killed his parents? You know, like, I mean,
right. But Batman does give you alternative enemies that are like, you know, big bad guys. Death Wish doesn't give you that. Like, there's no Joker, there's no Penguin, there's no Riddler. I can go on and on.
Yeah, you could
Scarecrow.
Yeah, yeah. Egghead.
King Tut.
King Tut's a good one. But anyways,
Catwoman.
Yeah, no, come on. We peaked at King Tut. That's not the point. The point of like you know, like having a main, like, 'cause the point of having a main villain is not like what that movie is. The movie doesn't need that to make the point it's making. Like this idea of just like crime being kind of like out of control. Okay, well, if I just kill the guy who violated my family or whatever, then, you know, well, problem solved. You know, like, but the issue is that it's like, you know, this is just an unsolvable problem that's just pervasive, and it's like, and it's every, you know, and it's not just gonna go away if we kill one guy. It's like this he's opening a fucking for lack of a better term, like a Pandora's box, you know, like he's getting involved into sort of addressing this crime problem, and he's realizing that once you start pulling a thread, the fucking string keeps fucking coming, and there's no end to it, you know. And
I agree that it has more of a realistic approach to the issue. Like, it's like dealing with the subject matter very seriously, in a very serious manner. I don't think that necessarily means that this is going to be entertaining. Like a movie like Taken is another example of, okay, this person kidnapped my daughter, and now, like, look at all the fucking wacky, crazy, insane shit I have to do to get her back. That is going to be more, entertaining. It's going to feel more fun and entertaining to see all that activity and to get the revenge, to get the daughter back, save the day. Is that realistic? No, but it's still more fun than seeing like a social message film.
But it's not just like, then the movie. Okay, we're really on Death Wish now, and we're getting into it here, pal. What's going on with Death Wish is, like, in terms of the story, in terms of like why am I, hey, like, I only get a few precious moments, like, before I have to go to work again. I want to watch a fucking movie with Charles Bronson, and I want to be entertained. Okay, well, how does Death Wish 1 entertain you? Well, like, it becomes a story about this guy just going on a little bit of a rampage, just going around just like shooting people.
I want to make it clear before we go any farther. Like, I don't dislike Death Wish. I think I like all the controversy is I like all the Death Wish movies.
Yeah, no need for the disclaimer. That's clear.
I like Death Wish. I like that first movie. I just feel like it is a little slow.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, don't worry. Like, we'll get through this. It's going to be fine.
It's hard for me.
I know. I was just going to say that, like, so how does the movie stay interesting? Like, because it's not a preachy social messagey kind of movie. No. It turns into this thing of Charles Bronson going on a little bit of a rampage, just going around and also, like, very strangely, like, using, like, kind of thinking he's a cowboy or something. Like,
there's this sort of cowboy subtext I remember to the film where he even goes to Arizona to doesn't he, like, learn how to shoot, or like he buys some like old, like, Western guns and shit. Like, he starts getting into being like an old timey cowboy guy.
Well, he okay. So first of all, like, there's the the sort of subversive casting of Charles Bronson as, like, a bleeding heart liberal, which you don't believe for a fucking second. Like, that
was another issue that you mentioned to me, which is I totally agree with, is that the transition from bleeding heart liberal to vigilante killer is Charles Bronson is not able to. When you get Charles Bronson, you're getting Charles Bronson. You're not getting somebody who can make this transition from architect wimp liberal cuck to brutal vigilante.
His acting range is just squinting his eyes,
so he doesn't have like that. And I feel like that also makes that whole ramping up period to him being a vigilante not as good as it could have been if it was somebody else with a little bit more range. But the thing is that once he becomes the vigilante, well, Bronson's your guy. Like, that is exactly what he should be. Nobody's going to be better at it than him.
Right.
But the transition from regular, normal architect to killer is what I think he has difficulty with.
They need an acting double. Like, instead of a stunt double, they need, like, an acting double. So, like, that's sort of another what you just got into is sort of another aspect of the whole Charles Bronson thing. But casting him as a bleeding heart liberal from the get-go is sort of like, it's a wink to the audience, kind of like, this guy that we've been seeing in Western movies for the last, like, 30 years is now sort of this mild-mannered, like, New York City architect whose heart bleeds for the disadvantaged. He goes to Tucson on a job to do a survey for some company that they're doing business with, and then he goes to he takes him to, like, some cowboy village where they watch sort of like a a fucking, whatever, like one of those like cowboy shows where guys are like, getting kicked out of saloon doors and stuff and beating each other in the street and shooting guns from horses and stuff. And you see Charles Bronson kind of just like looking upon it and with sort of fascination and kind of awe. And, you're as an audience member, you're sort of forced to kind of be like, oh, look at that. That's Charles Bronson. Like looking at this stuff. Like he's looking at Charles Bronson stuff,
Right. Well, also remember at the end when Vincent Gardenia, the cop that's on his tail, like trying to figure out who's doing all these vigilante killings in New York City. And at the very end, when I think he figured, he finally figures out, like he's pretty sure that Bronson is the guy, and Bronson's like laid up in the hospital or in an ambulance.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly.
I know what you're going to say.
But he's sort of like, you got until sundown to get out of town or something. Like he says
No.
He says some very cowboy thing to him.
No, the cop doesn't say it. Fucking Bronson says it. Like he goes, I want you out of New York permanently. And then he's like, detective, by sundown. And, and it's like, and then it's Bronson who's got cowboys on the mind. And also like,
right. So there is that like he thinks he is a cowboy now in
New it's
York
like,
City.
It's just Charles Bronson kind of like, or Paul Kersey, let's say, just kind of got it in his head that he's like a cool cowboy after blowing holes into blacks and Puerto Ricans for like 45 minutes. But he chases this one punk around town, and then he catches him, and he's at the top of the stairs, and he's like, "Fill your hand," and then the guy's just like, "What?" And he's like, "Draw," and then he passes out just from like running too much. And it's like, so there's, like double instance of Charles Bronson, just like
cowboy motifs.
Yeah. It's more than that. It's more just motif. It's like, it's him intoxicated on this idea of being a cowboy, like this, he's intoxicated on this newfound sense of violent masculinity that he's got.
He thinks he's Wyatt Earp. Right.
That's kind of the maybe the point of like, or one of the little threads of this film is sort of like, and you see this also with the fucking Bruce Willis remake too, of just sort of like a pussy going through like a transition and then becoming like a real man. Like like a big part of the movie is kind of like, we've all been turned into wimps, like we can't just rely on the government and the cops to keep us safe. We have to take matters into our own hands. Otherwise we're just a bunch of sheep, a bunch of cowards, So like a big part of Death Wish 1 is sort of like this transition from going from like a beta to like sort of an alpha kind of male. And
Who made the Bruce Willis one?
Oh fuck, it's Eli Roth.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's not. I have a few funny things. I've only watched half of it. Like I kind of turned it off because I became kind of just sort of bored and frustrated with it. But it's like, but real quick also, it's like, we kind of briefly mentioned too, that the cop kind of, going around and trying to find out who the vigilante is and like the work they're doing. And like he shoots some guys in the subway, but he leaves his grocery bag there, and they go to the receipt, and they end up through the receipt on the groceries finding out who Charles Bronson is. And then they start kind of like calling him on the phone and just being like, you're being watched, like we have police watching you, so stop being a vigilante. And then it turns into this sort of cat and mouse thing with Charles Bronson and the cops. And that's, that's really what the movie turns into, as opposed to sort of, with big capital letters, rape revenge movie. Like it's
right.
Death Wish 1 is not a rape revenge movie. Death Wish 2 is.
Vincent Gardenia is basically the adversary of the first Death Wish.
Right.
I mean, you can argue that sort of, urban crime is the enemy, but like his actual physical adversary is Vincent Gardenia, who's trying to stop him.
Well, like, from a storytelling perspective, like it's Elliot Ness and Al Capone kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, so fuck Death Wish 1, whatever. Like I actually do agree with you. I think that I agree with you in saying that it's a very dull, a lot more dull than people kind of remember.
Right.
But I would also say too that that's not a problem with the story. It's just a problem with Charles Bronson just not having any kind of ability to act at all. When you actually read the synopsis on Wikipedia of Death Wish, it sounds like a lot better of a movie than it is. And then you watch the film and you're like, okay, well, the synopsis is right, but I'm just not, I'm just not feeling any of it because I'm just not convinced by Charles Bronson. But you are correct. As soon as he puts on that pea coat and arms himself with that 38, he's fucking.
And
he's
the Jimmy
perfect.
Page movie, Jimmy Page music starts up.
Well, no, that it's Herbie Hancock in the first one.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, but I believe that the Jimmy Page soundtrack is superior. Actually, it's a lot more like menacing. But there's definitely something to be said for that kind of like funky, weird Herbie Hancock score that happens in the first one. So Death Wish 1, whatever, fucking pretty good, but it's not like if you're looking for like that rape revenge movie that everyone, what's your favorite sort of like revenge like movie? Oh, it's Death Wish. And it's like, well, actually that one is not really, it's not really,
well, like you said,
a revenge movie.
It's more of like a social commentary about, city crime.
Yeah. And how kind of, it's impossible to like root out and, but does it even talk about that? Not really. I would say that the real message in Death Wish is just a pussy turning into like a tough guy or whatever, and sort of, and how American men have lost their way. And this is a way, and this movie is sort of chronicling the journey of a fucking, a sissy kind of pacifist guy into a real American cowboy.
MAGA.
Yeah. So that really is the message. It's not really a revenge movie. He's motivated to kind of start his journey. He's motivated to do that by revenge. But, it's
out of all the Death Wish films, I think the second one could be argued to be a straight on revenge movie.
I would actually say that Death Wish 2 has more in common with I Spit on Your Grave than it does with Death Wish 1.
Right.
Yeah. So how about that for film criticism?
Damn.
Fuckers.
I can't believe you went there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Pretty bold statement.
I don't think anyone's thought about these movies enough. Yep. I'm just kind of a smart guy,
Somebody had to say it.
Yeah. Did you ever see Deadly Hero?
I don't know. Who's in it?
It's like this one motherfucker. Hold on. I remember the character name, but not not the actor's name. Deadly Hero. In the role of Officer Lacey, it's Don Murray. Do you know who Don Murray is?
Don Murray, no.
Don, so. And then James Earl Jones is in it as well. Also,
definitely not.
Okay, well, anyway, yeah, you should check this out. We'll talk about it next time. It's sort of the same thing. It's sort of like a Death Wish sort of thing, but it's like about a crooked cop, and the cop is sort of a villain, and you'll see. Like James Earl Jones plays like kind of the Jeff Goldblum character in this film. Like he plays kind of like the weird kind of sex pervert, deranged criminal. And
what's it called again?
It's called Deadly Hero. It's 1975. But check that out. I think you'll get a kick out of that one. Don Murray is fucking sick. Like you've seen him before, definitely in a few movies. But like he just plays like just a real.
What's his most famous role?
I don't know. Fuck. This is the only time he's ever had a lead. Like he's kind of like a Harry Dean Stanton. Like Harry Dean Stanton only. Like this is Don Murray's fucking Paris, Texas. Where he finally gets to like be the lead of a film himself.
Okay.
But most of the time he's just like the cop in some Denzel Washington movie from 1984, and like so you don't really get a good sense of him. But anyways, let's save this one for next time because you should watch it because it actually is a recommend of mine. The ending is really kind of satisfying. It's ambiguous, but it's satisfying that it doesn't fucking cop out.
Okay.
Yeah, so whatever. Who gives a fuck? Goddamn Death Wish 1, you motherfucker. Charles
Fuck
Bronson.
that shit.
So a movie that I want to talk about is, because we haven't talked about it at all, although you told me that it was long and weird, was I Love You Daddy by Louis C.K.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Natural Enemies. I was like all geared up.
Oh yeah, no, we'll do Natural Enemies, but I want to spend some time on I Love You Daddy because I uploaded it for you, I ended up just like putting it on and then just because I wanted to remember something about it, but then I just ended up watching the whole thing. So like it's fresh in my memory. I think it's a great movie, man. I don't know what your fucking problem is.
Hey man, don't put words in my mouth.
Fair enough.
It's a strange. I don't think it's a great movie. I think that because I remember after watching the first hour of it, my girlfriend and I were like, we got to take a break, and then we went back to it. It was just like it was almost like we were like, how much longer is this movie? It's like 2 hours long. And I guess it just it just doesn't feel like you never. The biggest issue with it that I think I had is that I don't believe that his daughter, played by Chloe, kick-ass girl, and John Malkovich, I don't believe it. Like, I don't believe their relationship.
Well, but I mean, like, what is their relationship? Like,
whatever relationship they have, I don't believe it. Yeah. And then, like, I was often frustrated by some of the dialogue, like when he's having a confrontation with John Malkovich about his relationship with his daughter, whatever it is, he's kind of like, are you having some sort of relationship with my daughter? What do you mean relationship? Well, are you like having sex with my daughter? Well, I don't, sex is such a, like, it was like an Abbott and Costello who's on first sort of conversation that I was just like, or like the other scene where she's like, I'm going to France with John Malkovich. And he's like, no, you're not. And then cut to her going to France with John Malkovich. And I was just kind of like, well, I feel like there was a huge chunk of conversation that I need to know how she was able to get past his not wanting her to go. Like, it was just, it seemed unsatisfying.
I mean, I guess
in a lot of those conversations, like I like, it was very frustrating to hear, like, and I know, like, okay, they're trying to portray him as a very ineffectual father, but man, it was really, really difficult. And then on top of that, like, if you're, and I also had this problem with Louis C.K.'s show, which is sort of like, and I like Louis C.K.'s stand-up. I think he's probably the funniest stand-up comedian working today. But if you're expecting that type of fun and comedy watching these movies, or watching this movie in particular, you're going to be really disappointed. Like, it's not really very, like, I didn't find it all that funny.
No, I mean, I could not disagree more, man. Like, honestly, but please continue.
I don't know what else to say. Like, I guess I'm ready to have you change my mind.
Well, I mean, that's what this podcast is all about, really. It's about the economy of ideas, the economy of opinions. So, first of all, like, I mean, as far as the relationship goes between Kick-Ass Girl and John Malkovich, like, I mean, like, sort of wealth and power go a long way, especially to, like, some girl who's, like, basically done everything, and, like, she's 17 and she's had, like, this wild fucking teenage years, going to spring break. She's got, like, unlimited credit cards. She can do whatever the fuck she wants. She's probably been fucked every fucking which way that is possible to fuck a girl. And she's
but
kind
they
of
don't
just,
really. That's you're just kind of you're guessing that like that's not something that's just come out, and they don't say that information is not clear.
well, I mean, she's come back from spring break. She takes a private jet there. She goes back to visit friends, to go party and stuff. Charlie Day's character kind of like fills in the, you know what they do there on spring break? They play this game where you have to lick a dude's ass and all this shit. But
there's even with that scene, like he's talking about like the Mother May I game, and he's like, okay, it's like the naked dudes on one side, naked chicks on this side, and then they have this real like fucking retarded girl who plays the mother, and she's the one who says like, okay, if you want to fuck that girl, you gotta lick this guy's ass. Oh, Mother May I can't fuck that girl. Well, you got to lick that guy. And then that's sort of the reveal at the end is that her role was the mother character, not the one of the sluts in line to get, fucked.
Yeah.
And that's even a weird scene where when she, after her birthday party, when she goes to John Malkovich's house and she tells that story, and after she tells it, she just kind of like picks up her shoes and leaves. And I was just kind of like, I don't even know what had just happened.
I don't know. I mean, like well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like at that point in the movie when we're kind of meeting the kick-ass girl character, it seems very clear to me the kind of person that she is. Like, it's not, because she's an amalgam of just like what we know about just kind of like the wealthy kind of out of control children of like celebrities. I mean. I didn't think that I needed to see her like having sex or like having sort of.
I would have liked to have seen a little bit more evidence. I don't need to see her like double fisting.
Seeing her kind of like walking around Louis C.K.'s apartment, like just kind of like the first time you see her, she's just wearing a bikini. Like it speaks to just her being completely, just sort of an open, free, like, if she's like this in front of her father, what's she like in front of like, what's she like when she's partying? Like if she's like this in front of her father's friends, like. But
we have to imply that that's not. And then the other thing that was bugging me too, and this was like another big issue, was that like the Louis C.K. character, who's like he's like a TV executive, big TV mogul. And
no, he's not. He's not a TV executive mogul. He's a fucking writer.
He has multiple TV shows on the air.
Right.
So that's a pretty big, like he's a Chuck Lorre kind of a guy.
I mean, he's a Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's a Curb Your Enthusiasm. What's his Larry David? He's a Larry David.
He's got multiple shows on the air.
Like Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay, so but then like he's like everybody in the whole movie just like steamrolls him. Like I'm even sort of surprised that he's able to get anything done. And then of course like he's like as the movie progresses, he's working on some TV show that he's not really completely invested in, and it just turns out to be a big failure. And like, I don't believe that this guy can make anything and to get anything on the air. Like, he doesn't have that type of personality. He just doesn't seem like, this is some like, he's a big Hollywood TV power broker. Like he just seems like a wishy-washy schlub.
Right from the foundations of that perspective, this idea that a guy who like a creative sort of, I think that he's not being framed as sort of like a mogul. He's being framed as a creative genius, like a guy who writes and makes shows that connect with people and people think, and they're funny and people, and he's popular, and like it's the moguls and the fucking executives that want to be doing business with this guy. And as far as like sort of people steamrolling him, steamrolling over him, I mean, that happens with like John Malkovich. But I mean, you can see what he does is he surrounds what's her name? Edie Falco, like who plays sort of his producer. Like, he's hired her because he realized, I mean, it's just like me. Like, I'm terrible at fucking doing anything. But the ideal situation is that like you hire someone who's gonna do all that shit that you're weak at to handle the business and to be that kind of like hard-nosed kind of pit bull who's gonna take care of your business like that. That's Edie Falco's character.
No, there's several characters that do that. There's the Edie Falco character, and then there's some other woman friend of his that shows up that also was up his ass and telling him what to do.
The Pamela Adlon, like his ex-wife.
It's not his ex-wife. His ex-wife is Helen Hunt. No,
but he also has.
It's like maybe he had an ex-girlfriend or something.
Right. Okay. My bad. It's not his ex-wife. It's his ex. It's someone who he's had a relationship with, like a romantic relationship with.
But every female character is like up his ass and all over him about everything. And the daughter pushes him around. Edie Falco pushes him around. Whatever that lady is that you just mentioned her name, she's like
Pamela Adlon, Bobby Hill,
him an idiot and a bitch and a stupid fucking asshole. Yeah. And then even the pregnant lady that he's dating fucking steamrolls him too. Like they're like it's just an endless parade of like the same character doing the same thing over and over again.
It's not the same character doing the same thing. It's like
one's pregnant, one's 18, one's a middle-aged lady. Like it's the same relationship.
It's a woman. I mean, they're all definitely women, but like it's
a woman who's an oppressive nag.
Well, that's not true. Like, I mean, the daughter is just like this monster that he's allowed to get out of control.
They're all monsters. Every woman in the movie is a monster.
So the daughter is a monster that he's allowed to get out of control, like monster in the Frankenstein sense, like one that he's created himself because he's just been trying to. He doesn't want her to ever stop loving him, so he doesn't do anything to that would threaten the relationship between him and his daughter. But he turns out that that's actually a bad thing to do. That's, I guess, maybe the point of the film. The Pamela Adlon character is just like, she definitely calls him names, but you don't get the sense that he's like being oppressed by her or that she has like, she's helpful, right?
He's such a wishy-washy wimp that he, like, whatever anybody just starts yelling at him, he's just sort of like, oh yeah, whatever. Like he just does whatever they say. He never fights back. He never like sasses.
He tries
back.
to.
Not really.
No, he does. He does. I mean, not with Pamela Adlon.
Not with the daughter. Not with Helen Hunt. Not with
the pregnant woman,
Pamela Ambalond, and not with the pregnant woman. Like he tries to do it, but then like that completely falls apart because he's like he has feelings for her, and then when
he tries to do it with the daughter too. I mean, he tries to put his foot down. Like that's the point of the whole movie. I mean, and also call me crazy, but like this is the fucking the engine of the comedy is just seeing this guy get like fucking like it's just him getting shit on the whole movie. Like that to me is funny.
On top of it too, like it was such like Woody Allen worship. Like he's so trying hard to do like a Manhattan.
I'll give you that.
And he's not, whatever Woody Allen has, Louis C.K. doesn't have it. He's not like both in screen presence and in writing and also the way that the film is sort of like, I guess it's sort of a joke that it's sort of presented in this way of that it's like Casablanca, like it's this old timey, like a grand cinematic experience. It was just kind of like, it felt very like pretentious. Like when Louis, and I felt this about his show too, it was like when he would try to get like very like deep and philosophical and poignant, I just wanted to fucking jump out a window.
I would have liked to err on the cynical side and been like, this isn't working on me, and didn't, been that guy. I always try to be that guy.
That was a good impression of me.
That's the cool guy, right? The cool guy is the guy who it doesn't work on.
You're too cool.
Your writing is shitty. Your writing is bad, and I don't. I'm not getting fooled by your tricks,
But it wasn't even like that's cerebral. It was just sort of like, okay, when does this he slip on the banana? When does he fucking get run over by the car? Like, I wanted to see, like, when does he get the pie in the face? Like, I want comedy. I don't want two guys sitting on the front stoop smoking and looking at the sky.
I mean, what does this say about me? You know, I mean,
I don't know, man. You're in trouble.
It's pretty tough. Well, okay, let's talk about happiness, because that sort of seems like a good transition, because like happiness is a movie that like I think is hysterical, and maybe even like the funniest movie that I've seen ever in my entire life. But I feel like you don't think so. I feel like you take that a lot more like seriously, like and you it's more disturbing to you.
No, well, maybe both. I don't know if I'd say it's the funniest movie I've ever seen in my life, but it's a fucking great movie. And like, I almost sort of like when I think of it, I liken it to like something like Salo, where it's just like, it's so emotionally draining that at the end of it, I'm just kind of like, man, I don't want to go through that again, because it's really emotionally brutal.
So then my assessment, I think of how you feel about that movie is more or less true. Like I find it pretty easy, just because of how the movie is like styled, and the choices of music and the even to some degree the casting. Mm-hmm. I find it very easy to keep it kind of at arm's length. It doesn't ever really get to me in a real emotional way, like in a way that's sort of like damaging, or like I take everything, even the most sort of like intense, like the ending, like the intense emotional moments and stuff like that. I take that all as just like extremely black comedy. Mm-hmm. And in the end, it always ends with a punchline. Probably the most like out of all the stories, like the little narratives that are happening within that film, mm-hmm. the Philip Seymour Hoffman one is probably the one that I feel is the most like emotionally resonant with me. Mm-hmm. But like the pedophile one is just like, it's just like, just the whole time is hilarious. Even the thing at the end where he's talking about fucking kids with his son is like, it's just hilarious.
What's one of the brilliant things about the film is how, when the son is having a sleepover with his friend, and the dad really wants to fuck his son's friend.
Yeah.
And he's like going through the whole process of like drugging the kid's food or drink or something. And he meaning Todd Solondz, like he convinces you to like you're on board, like you're kind of like when he's like drugging the kid's food, and like somebody's about to walk into the kitchen, like, oh, look out, somebody's coming. And you're just like, wait a minute, I'm rooting for the fucking
you're rooting for the pedophile,
and it's like this guy like has me rooting for this pedophile guy to get the job done.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing, like that sort of like great filmmaking.
Yeah, no, you're right. The little sort of like whimsical flute mm-hmm. Musical cue that they use whenever they show him admiring that boy, mm-hmm. like sprightly, youthful kind of thing, like a fresh summer's breeze, this little boy's ass, you know. And man, it's so funny. But yeah, like I mean, I don't take that as, I never took that movie as being emotionally draining. I just took it as being like sort of like subversively funny and like outrageous, audacious in a way that literally no other movie is. You know, like there's no other movie that's.
Oh no, it was like when I saw it in the theater when it came out, and like I was just like, man, that was really. Like, even at that time, like, I was just like, man, this was, like, really something else. Like, really incredible, just great movie. And I guess when I'm talking about, like, emotionally draining, it's just sort of, like, every character in the film, like, is just raked over the coals. Like, every one of them is, like, going through just the worst possible maybe not the worst possible, but just a very difficult time. And, nobody gets everybody wants something they can't have. And then it's like a very sort of Peanuts, world where like this guy loves this lady, but she loves this guy, and this fat lady likes Philip Seaman Hoffmore, but he hates her. And so it's sort of like it's kind of like this Peanuts kind of web of romance and unrequited romance and hate and dissatisfaction and failure. And yeah, it might be like one of the best American films from the 90s.
Yeah, no doubt. I really I've always admired Ben Gazzara's character in that movie.
Oh yeah, great.
I just like how he's just like, I want to get a divorce. And it's like, why don't you love me anymore? Is there another woman? He's like, there's no other woman. I just want to be alone. I just want to be alone by myself. I'm just like, hell yeah, that's how I want to be when I'm an old man. I just want to be like
the end when he's like, he's fucking he's fucking some lady, not his wife.
Yeah.
And he comes and she's like, oh, how was it? And how did that feel? He's like, I feel nothing.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, oh, that's something. And then meanwhile, they cut back to the dog, like eating cum off the fucking, he's eating somebody's cum. And then he goes and like,
he's eating the little boy's cum.
The son finally, like, cause he's been trying to like,
he's jerking off. He's jerking off to the lady sunbathing by the pool. And then he jerks off like on the balcony.
Like that's sort of like this theme through the whole film was like, he's trying to learn how to jerk off. And so he's like, constantly, he's just like, when am I going to come? He's like obsessed with coming. And so he finally just like comes, and then the dog eats the cum and then goes into the house and starts licking everybody's his mom's face. And it's just like, fuck, this movie's like going there. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
The dad's like a psychiatrist or a therapist or something.
He's a psychiatrist.
He's like a psychiatrist. And so he's going to see, he's talking to his therapist, psychiatrist, whatever. And like he's talking about like what's the ultimate happiness, like, because that's the other the movie's happiness. So it's like everybody's looking for whatever their happiness is, and his happiness is going to the park and blowing everybody away with a fucking AK-47 or something, like just killing people.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like that's basically the movie in a nutshell. Like your happiness is in conflict with other people's happiness.
I suppose I don't know that's what that scene. He's explaining to the psychiatrist what the fucking like what his dream is, and then he's like he's going into a park and he's blowing away gay guys because like the park's full of just homosexual men, like having kind of like nice sort of a park date with a picnic and stuff, and he comes in with like a fucking carbine, just like like blowing dudes away, and watching the significant other cry over their corpse, and then it goes back to the psychiatrist's office, and he's like, so do you think this is an improvement? And he's like, well, the only thing different is that I'm not I don't blow my own head off at the end of the dream. And he's like, oh, okay, well, that is an improvement. I don't know that it's framed as like, oh, this is happiness.
That was another thing that in the movie that I really liked, that I had never seen in a film before, where like the Philip Seaman Hoffmore character is like, he's this fat loser, and he doesn't want to be with a fat loser. He wants the beautiful model.
Lara Flynn Boyle.
He wants Lara Flynn Boyle. And so when Cameron Manheim comes a knocking, and she's like the neighbor or something, and she's just like, hey, let's go on a date. And he's just like, you are fucking disgusting. And as a viewer, you're kind of like, well, you guys should be together because you're both like losers. You're both like fat and gross. Like, shouldn't you guys like love one another? Like, you're both in the same league. And that's just not how it works.
But in the end, they do end up together. But then she kills the doorman.
Right.
Yeah. So there goes your whole theory.
But it's still like it's still not what he wants.
Well, but it's, sometimes you don't get what you want, but you get what you need.
Right. But there's so many moments in it. There's like after all this time, like it still resonates, and they still stick in my brain. No pun intended, because I was just thinking of when he comes on the wall and he doesn't wipe the cum up. He just sticks a postcard on the cum to hang the postcard up.
Yeah. Hey, have you ever seen with Philip Seaman Hoffmore, Love Liza? Did you ever see that movie, Love Liza?
No.
Okay, that's a good one.
Is that the one where he's the speech coach for Robert De Niro?
No. Well, I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't want to watch that though. That sounds terrible.
He's like this gay, like theater gay guy, and Robert De Niro is like some kind of New York City cop who I don't know, something happens.
Stutters?
There's something happens, like he gets in an accident, so he can't talk anymore. So like he has to go to voice therapy, and Philip Seaman Hoffmore is his voice coach.
Yeah. Love Liza is about a guy whose wife suddenly commits suicide.
Okay.
And the reason why it's called Love Liza is because like she leaves him a letter, and it just says Love Liza on it. Like, so it's a suicide letter, but it's specifically for him to read, but he just cannot bring himself to open it up and read it. Like every time he tries to open it up, he just gets violently ill and starts like vomiting and stuff because it's just too difficult for him to do that.
Okay.
And then this is really funny. He ends up like huffing gas at one point, and he discovers that like makes him feel better. So he starts to like just huff gas all the time, and then one time like some guy comes over to his house and he's like. Hey, you smell like gas. And he's like, yeah, no, it's because I've been getting into model planes, and I just spilled some of the gas on myself in the backyard. And he's like, oh, you're into model planes? Like, so am I. And he ends up like, and then all of a sudden Philip Seymour Hoffman has to fucking get into model planes.
Right.
And he has to start getting involved in this hobby.
To hide his gas addiction.
to hide his gas huffing addiction because of this suicide of his wife.
Sounds like The Beaver.
What?
You ever see The Beaver with Mel Gibson, with Jodie Foster?
No, never.
Okay.
But hold on, we'll get to that in a second. The film, it feels like it would be kind of like it could be sort of, if it was written today and that was like the premise, it would be all like goofy and like try hard. But it has just like a pretty like consistent sort of tone of despair over the whole thing. Like it's a very kind of sad and kind of, it actually feels a little bit like, the reason why I like it is because it feels like happiness, and it maybe be in large part due to the fact that Philip Seymour Hoffman is in it. Another film that guy fucking Yorgos Lanthimos or whatever his name is, like the lobster guy. I feel like those films, in a sense, in a sort of a very vague sense, kind of even remind me a little bit of the kind of comedy that I like about happiness as well. But it's not quite.
I agree.
It's not quite the same. It's not quite the same, but it's somewhere in the same species.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of not the lobster, but the Sacred Deer.
That's the best one.
I love that movie. Yeah, that has a lot of that kind of like weird, creepy family sexual dynamic.
Killing of a Sacred Deer is kind of an outlier because it's a horror film. It's the most horror out of all.
You're actually like probably the first person I've spoken to that liked it. Like every time I talk to somebody about it, they're like, "Ugh, I hated that movie," and I'm just like,
"Oh, Killing of a Sacred Deer." Really?
Uh-huh.
Everyone likes that movie that I know.
Oh man, well you're living in fucking Taiwan, man.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't really talk to anybody. I just talk to
your mom,
my Chinese mom. Killing a Sacred Deer is like very clearly. I mean, it's held in very high regard, but I guess just your circle of friends doesn't seem to like it.
My friends are such jerks.
They're just such fucking jerks, man. Gotta get new friends.
I know.
These were the movies on the list today, by the way. So The Sailor Who Fell from Grace with the Sea, Bo Pear, I Love You Daddy, Happiness.
We didn't even talk about Bo Pear.
That's the point. That's why I'm reading out this list. Natural Enemies, Combat Shot.
We didn't talk
Death
about
Wish
Natural
1,
Enemies either.
or Combat Shot. Deadly Hero. I talked a little bit about Deadly Hero. A Spit on Your Grave 2. Stalked by My Doctor.
Oh, those are good. Can't wait to talk about those.
Okay, so the name of the episode today is going to be PHILLIP, Semen, HOFFMORE. Anywho, all right, fuck it, whatever. We're finishing this fucking episode. We're putting it up on the internet, and we're going to just let the cards lie as they fall. Is that an expression that people use?
Of course it is. Yeah.
Okay,
let the cards lie as they fall.
Oh fuck! What are we even doing anymore? I think this is going to be the last episode. Okay, so this is the last episode we do, everybody. Thank you very much for your
so don't expect
your patronage.
Natural Enemies next week.
No, Natural Enemies. Sorry, that's canceled. Yeah, and that sucks because Natural Enemies was actually a film that was suggested in the comments. So us talking about Natural Enemies would show engagement with our audience, for once. So us not talking about it is just like sort of
it's like a big fuck you to our fans.
Yeah, it's a big fuck you to our one fan.
Right.
Right. Well, let's let the cards lie as they fall.
You start a Patreon, it's like $5,000 a month. It's like executive podcast.
Yeah, that's the thing where you actually get to.
It's the Raya of podcasts.
That's where you if you pay that much money, we'll fly out to have dinner with you.
Sounds fun.
All right, I'm going to stop recording. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.